sometimes speaking tongues.
Seers, Soothsayers is an exhibition that features 7 artists from the African continent and the African diaspora who in many different ways are looking at the intangible or the non-physical. And by that, we mean that they're looking at themes around spirituality, psychology, they're thinking about really abstract things.
I think it's really exciting that we have a show that is lens-based. I think film as a medium is so dynamic, apart from obviously the visual aspects and components of it, but it incorporates so many other textures and other variants that you can experience with a film, like sound, and plays with light, and it can be very immersive in some ways. And I think specifically with this show, it is not just a film on a wall, it's immersive, there are installations and even sculptural elements. And some of the artists even activate their works through performance.
They are exploring themes around memory, history, both personal and collective history, as well as new ways of thinking about underrepresented histories. So there's a really important text that underpins this exhibition, and that is a poem by Kai Miller, a Jamaican author. The poem is titled Speaking in Tongues, from 2007. The reason why we chose this poem was that it kind of encompassed everything that we were thinking about as we were planning Seekers, Seers, Soothsayers. In that the poem begins with the author thinking about his grandmother and how she would go to church and be overcome by a bigger spiritual force, end up speaking in an unknown language, and it ends with the author having a debate or questioning language with someone else.
There's something about image and about the poetics that can happen through image that is really fascinating as we are trying to capture things. I am very much attached to the idea of the unexpected that can happen when we're behind the camera. I do work scripting things a little bit, or to some extent, and I also do like to leave room for a bit of improv. And I like to know that there's a possibility for many things to be interpreted in a certain way by the person who is being captured. And also, I think the idea of being able to convey a certain emotion or certain emotions through image, through moving image, is something that I feel very passionate about.
So my practice has been a deep interrogation of the notion of self, and the word notion being the most important in that sentence. So for me, it's not necessarily about me. It's kind of my way of kind of trying to understand and excavate the notion of what the self is. I think about the idea of the persona as a mask, and I think about the idea of the self being constantly evolving and changing and shifting. And so it's not a fixed point, and so I don't really feel that it's autobiographical, because my own experience of myself is something that's constantly changing and shifting.
The artwork these practices are done in sharing her stories, which is shown as part of this exhibition, is an ongoing project where I document various individuals either sharing, thinking, or meditating about different kinds of women. The artwork is meant to create some sort of collection pool or some sort of living archive in which different kinds of people offer different kinds of memories. I think a very crucial part to my work is documentation, the making of archives. For me, photography or video documents these performances, you know. While I can't necessarily recreate what that moment is in sharing in its complete entirety, film sort of allows me to document but a glimpse, you know. The image no longer just remains static, it begins to move, even if it's so subtly, or even if it's just a repeated gesture, it moves. And this kind of movement and fluidity, I think, is something that then becomes a very crucial component of the way in which I produce my work, to be able to capture like these little moments of fluidity. I look at how global histories and politics have affected my life and my community. I more specifically focus on the Cold War, which is often described as this passionate affair between the East and West, while everyone on the ground, more specifically Africa, Southern Africa, Angola, felt the heat. Lives were changed, lives were lost, and I needed to know why I was living in a place like Pomfret, which is not even a real natural border. It is a designed one, a well planned out one. I needed to make sense of why it is the way it is. The video is wall to wall, so it touches the ceiling and touches the floor. It's large, it projects bright. It's quite a dark room. I feel that it's a bit cold, not so welcoming. But as soon as you cross the room and the light of the projection hits you, you are now part of the performance. You're now part of the work. You're now with the shadow that's in this image, pleading and asking to be heard and to be listened to, screaming, but the screams don't come out loud. You are now pleading with this character for change, attempting to interrupt history, attempting to shift something, attempting to travel through time. But it feels futile, because at the end of the day, it's just your shadow. It's just a part of you, part of the work, but that attempt to interrupt will continue as long as your shadow. I think even with everything that's going on in the world, we have to speak about it to try and interrupt and hopefully change the course of history.
I think every artist has autobiographical work. We speak from a particular context. My work is autobiographical because I speak of the Black female experience, which is contextually based in South Africa. So I'm speaking about the socioeconomics of the Black female experience here in South Africa, and also things that have to do with spirituality, history, culture, sex, gender, race, all of these things that are embodied in one body. So there is no escaping anything that is autobiographical. The work literally speaks about a particular experience, which is very much tied to who I am. So the work has a lot of monikers and symbols particularly because I wanted to focus on the things that people see every day but don't really pay attention to. You have to ask yourself, why are these people wearing white? What is this red? What does it mean? So really, the video, the film, is a questioning of self, it's a questioning of culture, it's also questioning history, because what we need to do is really start digging into who we are as a people, because I think to fully understand ourselves, we need to get to a point where we understand why people prior or before us did the things that they did, so that we understand who we are now, why we came to being, how we do the things that we do, and why we do them. So it's really important to use particular things in order to kind of hint at questions and also the past.
My practice is very much linked to my gender and sexuality activism for many years. Is where I go and try to, I have a lot of questions around what it means to do activism. Right now, I have a lot of questions around feminism and queer activism. And from those questions there, this is where my art started, to be honest. So when I started doing collage, I started doing with my own black and white photos. I'm still trying to figure out why. I mean, unconsciously for me I'm still in this binary way of thinking that is kind of maybe me, us versus them, but being them, the structure, not them, a specific them, the structure itself. So when I'm talking about this mental in the body, I'm still trying to see the origins of why do we think gender is this, why do we think sexuality is this, to navigate the exclusion that a queer body goes through. So black and white at the time made a lot of sense for me, because I was referring to what it means to be Black. And at the time I was in Portugal, and I kind of grew up in Portugal, and I have very specific racism situations in Portugal, but also allow me to create the meaning of Blackness in the sense of the photo. If you're gonna see, some of the collages are really dark, some others are more highlighted. And for me, there was a explanation about existing. Sometimes I can exist, other times I can't. So I wanted to incorporate that feeling also in the video.
When I create work, I'm not really creating it for a person to understand per se. I don't need you to look at it and understand exactly 1 + 1 gave her 2 and then it became 3. When I create work, it's just to create a space of connection. It's just to invite people in. It's just to create like it's kind of like a channel. Wherever it takes you, for me, is fine. If the work is talking about, let's say, I don't know, darkness, and you look at it and it speaks light to you, then that's what it is. However you connect with the work, I don't expect someone to approach the work and start thinking of why exactly did this happen this way and that. If you think about it, that's fine. But I think this also stems from even the way I approach my work as an educator. I'm not someone that gives answers. I try to guide you to find the answers for yourself. So even in my work as an artist, I'm not one to say, oh, I use this color because I thought this color means this and means that. I want you to connect with that color, and whatever it means to you, take that and go with it. You know, that's kind of the way I approach it. So, which is why I generally don't like to over-explain work. I'm happy to have conversations with anybody that's interested to know things, but there's a certain level I wouldn't explain to, because I want you to just experience it yourself. Whatever you get from it, art is about feeling, really. It's not, I don't approach it with logic. It's something I approach with feeling. So just whatever feeling you get from it is fine.
One of the reasons why we titled this exhibition Seekers, Seers, Soothsayers is that we were thinking about how artists are mediators and how artwork can be a medium connecting us to other worlds, other realms, helping us to find language for things that we can't articulate but might be able to sense and feel. And if you look at all of the 7 different artworks and artists in the show, you'll see that within the group, there are seekers, those who are seeking or tapping into the divine in many different ways, or tapping into different realms. There are seers, those who are able to draw on the past, but also tap into the future. And there are soothsayers, those who narrate or translate messages from different places in order to give us a new or nuanced understanding around the non-physical world.
With film, you get projected into another world inherently. Just that is the basis of the medium. It kind of transports you and has that fantastic ability to do so. I think with the show, we get to incorporate the visitor in many different ways, with shadow, with light, with different objects. And when it comes to the physical and metaphysical realm of the significance of spirituality, the elements play a big part in that. Our world and how we interact with the world is very considered. I think that all of the artists really play with the elements and play with their environment in a very interesting way.
It's really exciting to be able to show my work alongside such incredible artists. It's amazing to be able to share that space with 6 other women and 1 non-binary artist, all from the African continent, all with just incredible, like a breadth of narratives and forms of storytelling within their practices, with people who I feel a kinship with. After having been able to spend time with some of the artists as well, it's been really beautiful to get to know them as well as people. But I'm also in awe of their work and the way that the work has been displayed in the exhibition as well.
I feel that there's a beautiful cohesion that happens in the way that all of our works are together. I think that they're very much embraced next to each other. They embrace each other.
One of the strengths I find about this exhibition is that while some of the works are engaging with very violent subjects, subjects of trauma or subjects of pain and of sorrow, I find it very powerful in how almost all the artists deal with this subject in a very careful and meaning way, in ways that the violence is not recreated, but also doesn't take away from that violence.
I found it quite beautiful that there were 3 artists of Angolan descent or Angolan. Pamina, Latedjou. But I also found it beautiful how we all are sharing our memory, like pulling from our minds and our hearts to share this connection that we have to the world. I think it's also an understanding of trying to understand human behavior and history. Being next to Gladys Kalichini and the hymn of the church is quite beautiful. I think revolution and church in Africa go hand in hand. But having that hymn sort of usher in my work is quite poetic and beautiful. I often look at hymns within my community as a way of archiving language and history. And also the relationship between Zambia, Angola, even Namibia, and South Africa. I think it all ties in. To think of a country as singular and isolated is just wrong and brings in more division. There's many conversations to have, and this is quite a beautiful thread. It's quite a beautiful travel.
It's such a powerful group of people that have been invited to participate. I'm honored to be part of this cohort. I feel like throughout the exhibition, there's highs and then there's things that are mellow. So it makes you move. It's like a rhythm. So it speaks very rhythmically. So I'm also learning about other people's practice even more. I think it's beautiful. I think it was a job well done.
Our works were interlinked and bringing a conversation, and that my work was able to add to that conversation.
I feel quite honored to be part of this exhibition. It's really empowering for me the fact that this show is all women. We're all women artists, we're all lens-based artists, we're kind of in the same space. It really gives me a sense of, is pride the word I'm looking for here, to be part of this group that's focused on kind of promoting women artists, and not just women artists, but it's, for me also, is what the show is saying, Seekers, Seers, Soothsayers. It really resonates with me. When I read the statement for the show as well, it really resonated with me. It was really spot on for me in terms of the work I do as an artist and as a human being as well, the kind of, should I say, vibe that I go with. So for me, it's been a really positive experience, I would say. We all work in kind of like a healing space, you know, so it's all like a bunch of powerful, deep work coming together to create this kind of environment that invites people to reflect, to feel, to look inwards, to heal, to touch those places in them that need to be touched, and to kind of open that up and share that with other people. So I'm really, really, really pleased to be part of the show.